Hello, I'm so happy to be with you today as we are going to crank together to make a pair of socks on Dean & Bean's sock machines. You'll need the pattern to start. This is available as a free download at deanandbean.com. I'll also include a link below. I am Susan. Dean and Bean are my two oldest children, and they designed the sock machine for me. I want to talk first about the construction of the sock and then the supplies you'll need in this first video. This is going to be a toe-up sock. When the sock comes off the machine, it's completely finished just like this, which is great. So we're going to learn how to do the toe, and then we'll make sure the foot will fit. This is a 3-wedge heel. So you can see this is the first wedge, and then it does 2 rows all the way around. And then there's a second wedge, 2 rows around, the third wedge. And this is based on Cat Bordy's Sweet Tomato Heel. Then you'll crank the leg. I typically crank 100 rows, so that's what this is. Then we're going to do a hung hem cuff at the top and learn how to do the latch tool bind off. The great news is with this method, you can knit a pair of socks in an afternoon. There are lots of different ways to make socks on a circular sock machine, and this may not be the fastest. Fast was not my goal. My goal was to make sure that I was able to make a beautiful sock every single time, and some of the other methods would leave a hole at the toe or would leave holes right here at the heel, which I didn't like, and I wanted to make sure it would be beautiful every time. And so I did extensive testing to come up with this pattern. And the method I used actually is something you could do to practice. So for example, I made lots of just toes until every toe was turning out like I liked it. And then I started adding a cuff at the top of my toe with a hung hem so I could practice hanging the hem. And then I practiced a lot of heels. So I would do a heel, I'd crank a few rows, I'd put another heel right on. And I did that over and over. So here's a heel, and there's another heel, and there's another heel, just to practice and to really perfect the design. And then I started making mini socks. This is not meant to be for a person at all. It was just a chance to practice with some inexpensive yarn to make sure that my toe was turning out like I wanted, my heel was like I wanted, my method for the cuff was going to be consistent every time. And after all of that is then when I would start using my nicer project yarn. So fortunately, I've done all of that testing for you and feel confident that this is a pattern that works successfully, although again, not the only way you can knit socks. So I encourage you to experiment, and there will be more videos coming on how to do mock rib and picot edges and color work, etc. For now, let's get started on this basic sock pattern. You will want a copy of the pattern that you could either download or just pull up online. Then we're going to need your project yarn. I'm going to use this yellow yarn today. This is a fingering weight sock yarn, 20% nylon, which I always prefer. There's a whole section on the deanandbean.com website that talks about different yarns. You will also need some waste yarn in a sharply contrasting color. That's very important. Your waste yarn should be the same weight as your project yarn. I want to review the tools that I use that are standard. This is a pick tool, and the pick tool has the very sharp tip. The loom tool has a little bit more of a rounded tip. If you're able to use the loom tool, it's better because it will help you avoid splitting stitches, but sometimes the stitches are really tight, so you need the smaller pick tool. You'll need a latch tool. We use a ruler for helping test the gauge and make sure your sock is going to fit. And I also use some stick pins, or you could use safety pins. You might want a soft ruler, the kind that can wrap around your foot. We'll need darning needles for sewing in at the end, as long as some standard things, of course, just like a pair of scissors. I like to have a pair of tweezers for helping pick up and repair missed stitches. You'll need some Ravel cord. I recommend having Ravel cord. And for this knit, it's best to have 2 pieces. Each of these is about 1 yard. I like to use a couple of weighted clips, again, not required. With the Dean & Bean sock machine, it's best to use these soft weights that go down in the middle. I like to have a set of 3. This is a 1/2 pound, 1.5 pounds, 2.5 pounds. If you're using a tighter tension, you actually might want a heavier weight than that, and there are also instructions on how to make those. When using the soft weights, you always need the cable ring. Because we're doing the toes and heels, you will need a set of heel forks or some other kind of weight. You can use V-hooks, but I like the heel forks. And then you'll need 6 pieces of scrap yarn, about 6 inches each. You might want to have one that's in a different color. We're also going to start by testing our gauge, and then I keep my yarn winding tool on my drill handy, so it's easy just to rewind my cone. Today I'm going to be knitting on a 60 needle cylinder. This pattern will work on any size cylinder. You'll see I have some target needles marked. So this is the main mark on my machine is a long red mark, and the halfway mark is a tiny red dot. Then there are 4 pink marks and 2 blue. The 2 blue are the wedge heel targets, and the opposite pink marks are going to be for the toe, the target needles for the toes, and then we'll use these last pink ones, all of the pink ones actually, when we hang the hem. You'll also want a setup bonnet in a corresponding size, and there's a pattern again for how to do this at deanandbean.com, but this really makes casting on a lot easier. There is a detailed course online on deanandbean.com. I'll include the link below, and it includes a lot of basics that we're not necessarily going to cover today. So if you haven't looked at that yet, I might suggest checking that out before you go on, and that will save you some time and potentially heartbreak during the knitting of our sock. So gather your supplies, grab the pattern, get your yarn ready, wound onto your cones, and meet me back here. Visit us at deanandbean.com and please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.